Alright, me, I'm back. Making a countdown for you guys like I said I would. Sorry if this came out a little late, I'm not very, this is my first countdown, so it might be a little lacking in quality and take me longer than normal. Anyway, enough with that, let's get started. If you've watched any of my older tanks videos, or some of them, you'll know what the first, my least favorite tier 10 Arty is, which is the countdown if you've read this video's title, which you should have. Um, num number one, number five, tier 5 countdown is the Soviets. The reason why the Object 261 is last, well, the damage isn't that good, but it's still pretty crippling. But the accuracy is amazing, and it's got 8 armor-piercing rounds, making this thing a good tank destroyer artillery. Why is this thing so low? First off, the grind to it is awful. The mid-tier Russian artillery are extremely low accurate, low aiming time guns. So even for artillery standards, it became extremely difficult to do anything with them. And second of all, the tier 8s and 9s are some of the worst vehicles in the game, so it's extremely difficult to get this vehicle. It's not really worth it, in my opinion. And the shell arc is god awful, making this thing forced to be a tank destroyer, which is something even the tier 10 British tank destroyer does better. It gets more damage, far better accuracy, far better aim time. The penetration's better. It gets regular armor piercing rounds. It gets the premium ammunition is ridiculous compared to this thing. And it's got hit points and armor. There's no reason to get this thing. That's why it's, Object 261 is number 5. Number 4, we have the T92. Before we got the British, the T92 would be probably the best heavy hitter, simply because it has the biggest damage in the game. So the British only have 50 less damage, but the T92 gets armor piercing, so make it of it what you will. And the T92 is terribly inaccurate, but it's more accurate than the British. And I'm not sure if the aiming time is better or worse, but I'll tell you when I get to the British. It's not that fast. It's big. Its gun is good, but not great. Its view range is okay. Nothing really sticks out other than the exceptionally good gun arc. And the shell lobbing is pretty good. But other than that, it's pretty standard for an artillery. So if you want a standard artillery, I'd go with either the Germans or the Americans. Next up, we have the GWE-100. Why I choose this thing over the American? Well, first thing is, the gun doesn't do as much damage, but it's more accurate, it's got better aiming time. It gets armor-piercing ammunition as well. So it seems like a better vehicle. It gets a really big gun for that 8.4 accuracy, which is good for tier 10 artillery. Unless you're comparing to the French or the Russians. It's not that big, but a vehicle based on the E100, you're not really expecting for that. And for a vehicle that's this big and based off an E100, the top speed's really good. So it is pretty interesting. And the armor is really good. The side armor's high explosive, resistant side skirts pretty much make your side armor completely impenetrable to standard gun armor piercing, standard HE and explosive anti-tank rounds. Sure, artillery is still going to blast through it, and vehicles like the FV-215B-183 can still blast through that, simply because of its high alpha. But it is still really good. And another really one of the bad things about this is its gun arc is pretty poor. Not its shell arc, but its gun arc. They only got 12 degrees of its gun arc, which is sucks, but you can't have everything. And with that 7-second aiming time, it can be kind of difficult sometimes. But this thing is a long-range artillery, and it does have decent armor for a tier 10 artillery. And it's got the most hit points. Not much more, but, you know, that's one thing. And it's a really good swimmer, so because of how big it is. And how tall. I mean, I would recommend either this or the next two. Next up, we got the British, the Courser or gun carrier, whatever the hell you want to call this thing. First off, it's got the second highest alpha, only 50 less than the Americans. Its penetration is decent, but its rate of fire is one of the worst in the game. It's the worst rate of fire of any gun that's not an autoloader. The accuracy is the worst in the game by far, like 0.29 or like it's like almost 2.2 millimeters of dispersion less than the American. And its aiming time is worse by slightly. So this thing's good. It's ridiculously inaccurate. But it is pretty fast, and its armor is ridiculous. If you angle this thing around the corner effectively, you can bounce pretty much anything. And I wish this thing carried armor-piercing ammunition, because then it would be ridiculously good around corners. But it doesn't carry that. I mean, you're probably gonna kill yourself if you shoot around someone who comes around the corner. And its view range is god awful. One of the biggest flaws with this thing. And the gun arc is ridiculous. One of the other advantages of this thing. I don't know how good the shell lobbing is, but I assume it's good. And the another flaw with this thing is the fact that it's just it's got a big hole in the armor on that. And it's not 152 all around. The superstructure is only 50 millimeters, and it's got no gun depression either. And its range is pretty poor for an artillery, but it is still a pretty good artillery nonetheless. And that's number one, you say? The French, obviously. First off, the gun, for pathetic penetration and damage. But, the rate of fire is the best out of all the artillery. The accuracy is really good, only 0.002 less than the Russians. It's got a good arc for French artillery, so that's nice. And it's got a clip, which is great. And the aiming time's ridiculously good. And it's extremely fast. And it gets a turret. And it's got the best camo. It's just by far the best artillery. Because a 4 clip is technically over 4,000 damage. To do that poor penetration, you're probably not going to do 4,000 damage. You'll probably do like 2,000 to 3,000. And the clip reload is the worst in the entire game. Which is bad, but, the gun traverse for the turret's pretty poor too, but with the hole, it turns really fast. And with a vehicle like this, it's nice to be able to pivot. So, yeah. If you're gonna go choose an artillery, I'd either recommend going for the, I'd choose any of these tier 10 artillery are good. Then there'd be good choices except for the Soviet, which is not only ridiculously hard to get to, but isn't really worth that grind when the, British tank destroyer is pretty much a Object 261 on steroids, so why would you want, and it's an easier grind too, so why would you want the Object 261? You don't. The Russian artillery are pretty crap, except for the tier 3 isn't that bad, and the S-51 isn't that bad either, but other than that, they're all crap. So that's pretty much it. I guess I'll check you later, guys. Bye.